A musical welcome in Shanghai for Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva as he arrived late Wednesday for a state visit to the People's Republic of China. He will stay in Shanghai for 2 days before traveling to Beijing to meet with China's President Xi Jinping. The leaders of the two BRICS countries are expected to sign more than a dozen deals during the trip. Journalist Chen Tong is with China's global television network CGTN. She was at Shanghai's Zhongqiao International Airport for Lula's arrival and filed this report.
Brazilian President Lula's China visit starts from here in Shanghai, and during his trip in Shanghai, he will be attending the inauguration ceremony for the new president of the new development bank, which headquartered here in Shanghai's Pudong New Area. And the new president of the bank is actually the former president of Brazil, Dilma Rousseff. And Lula is also expected to visit the Huawei Innovation Center in Shanghai and also meet some Brazilian entrepreneurs, and then head to Beijing to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping. It has been the fifth time for Lula to come to China. His first time actually was in 2001 when he was the honorary president of the Workers' Party. And then he came to China 3 times as the president of Brazil. And this time he's bringing a delegation team of over 200 members. Most of them are entrepreneurs. And according to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at Brazil, the two countries are expected to sign some 20 deals in industries including healthcare, education, agriculture, and finance. Earlier, Lula also told media that he would like to invite Chinese President Xi Jinping to Brazil and to show him some of the projects Lula hopes to see more Chinese investment. China has been Brazil's largest trading partner for over a decade, and 1/3 of Brazil's exports actually go to China. Just last month, the two countries signed a deal to ditch US dollar in favor of using their own currencies in trade transactions. So all of these are showing how determined these two BRICS nations, these two emerging economies, are expected to promote their mutual benefits. Chen Tong, CGTN from Hongqiao International Airport in Shanghai.
For more on that, we go to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and speak with journalist Camila Escalante. Camila, first of all, great to have you with us. I guess it's just you and me this week, and big stuff, of course. We're talking about the B and C in the BRICS construct, which is the sort of the ground zero of the rising multipolar world. So let's take a closer look.
Well, Lula has already arrived in Shanghai. It's his first stop during his visit. He was received by former president of Brazil, who is now the president of the new development bank, that is the Bank of the BRICS, Dilma Rousseff.
Yep.
And so tomorrow there is going to be a swearing-in ceremony. She's already been at work the last 2 weeks there in Shanghai, which is the headquarters of the BRICS Bank. But the actual ceremony that's going to officialize everything is going to be tomorrow. And Lula, of course, is going to be attending. And he's there in China with a huge delegation. I counted about 6 or 7 state governors, but he's also there with businessmen, senators, deputies, and ministers from all sorts of ministries. And it's important to highlight that he's there with so many businessmen because it's so important for Brazil to be able to promote different sectors and make a wide range of deals, around 20 or more bilateral agreements may be signed when he meets with President Xi Jinping. That will be on Friday. So he will be heading to Beijing from Shanghai. And so there's just huge economic and geopolitical importance for both Brazil and China. He'll be doing these official visits, not only with President Xi, but he'll also be meeting with the president of the Congress, and other authorities. And of course, the signing of all of those agreements, he'll be, doing these sort of symbolic appearances at the Tiananmen Square and all sorts of other things. But, it's really important because China is Brazil's largest trading partner since 2009. China imports almost 90 billion in Brazilian products, the number one product being soy, but other products as well. And so, Lula is just past the 3-month mark in office. Actually, we're just at about 100 days in office.
Right.
And so he has a lot of challenges. There were a lot of, issues with the way in which the Brazilian state and industries were absolutely abandoned under the Jair Bolsonaro government. And so now he's trying to come in, Lula da Silva and his administration are trying to come in and, confront some of these challenges now with the help of China. And so, there's a lot that China and Brazil can do together in terms of looking at ways to alleviate, some of the inequality that has worsened in recent years in Brazil, looking at, adopting some of the more successful hunger alleviation and poverty alleviation programs that have been implemented by the Chinese government, and also looking at ways to help small-scale farmers in Brazil, which are such important contributors to the national economy and provide, the food for the Brazilian people, but also helping those small-scale farmers so that they can help the national economy by exporting to, of course, China and other places. This requires technology transfer. This requires a lot of the things that China has already figured out on their own. And so, one of the most important and fascinating things in Brazilian society is, the strength of the social movements, which I know that you've probably seen some of that, Don. And of course, the landless workers movement, the MST, which is the agrarian reform, land reform movement there in Brazil. One of their demands and one of the things they've looked at is, the successful model of China in terms of agriculture, in terms of helping small scale farmers. And this is something that they're looking at too. So it's not just the business sector. It's not just, the auto sector, but also, small scale producers, farmers there in Brazil who are also hoping that this trip will have Lula coming back with some really good agreements that actually can help them back in Brazil.
It's interesting looking at the various trade patterns that exist now between particularly looking at Brazil and South Africa in their relationship with China. First of all, in each case, is the largest trading partner. So we're looking at somewhere around $90 billion a year in exports to China from Brazil, and about 14% of South Africa's, or that's out of 108 billion. So you're talking about maybe $15 billion worth of exports. Still the largest export partner for South Africa as well. And the imports of Brazil from China at about 47, 48, maybe around 50 billion by now, because these are 2020 numbers. And it's about 18% of 100 billion, or $18 billion for South Africa. Again, China the largest, and Germany the second largest import partner for South Africa, with the U.S. trailing third at half of what Germany does. In other words, this group is developing, and these numbers are almost double what they were 10 years ago between these countries. This group is developing sort of a cohesive, organic economy among the five, and then this constellation of nations that are applying whatever term you want to use. They want to play too, and this is an alternative to the U.S. European colonial, in essence, economic construct that straddled the planet by itself until very recently.
Yeah, absolutely. And so all of this is taking place, within the context of various countries in Latin America, but also just throughout the global South, looking to China, but also other partners of the global South. They no longer want, everything having to do with trade, but also political relations to facilitated or filtered through the United States and Europe. And it's important to say that this this official trip by Lula and this massive delegation from Brazil to China was supposed to take place at the end of March, and he fell ill, so it was of course postponed. But there was a whole delegation that went ahead of him for preparation, and they actually attended a sort of bilateral conference there that was organized by Apex Brazil, which is the state-owned company for the promotion of exports and investments. And they went ahead with their agenda, and they were actually able to score some really important deals there. And the most important one is that China and Brazil is going to be able to conduct bilateral trade directly between the Chinese yuan and the Brazilian real, excluding the US dollar as a method of payment. And this is something that all sorts of countries are looking to do. They made other agreements as well during those days that the different authorities of the Brazilian state and also businessmen went ahead and fulfilled that agenda on behalf of Lula. And so this is just going to, continue. I think, Brazil is also looking at ways to better facilitate trade between, this massive economy and its neighbors in Argentina, a very key trade partner and neighbor for Brazil as well, and Uruguay. Those were his first two stops, or the first two official visits that he made during this presidential term. Of course, the next one was the United States. He had a fairly brief agenda there, and it's just very, clear what Lula's intentions are. His intentions are to strengthen the Brazilian economy and become a leader for our entire hemisphere. This is the largest democracy in our hemisphere on the American continent, unless you believe the U.S. is some sort of a democracy as well. And so it's extremely key what's taking place right now. And, all eyes are there on Beijing for that meeting on Friday.
Okay, Camila, thanks a lot for all of that. And we'll pick it up next week.
Thank you so much.
For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.